Hello everyone, welcome to Series 4, Episode 9 of the Property Empress podcast. And I'm very pleased to say, after a short absence and a brief visit last week that we had, I've got Anna back in the studio with me today.
Yay!
Yay, she's back. So our property expert, our bona fide property expert, not me grabbing on the coattails, is here to talk about property and entertain us all on the podcast again. How are you? How are you feeling?
I'm okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm so sorry to have obviously missed a couple of episodes. Thank you for stepping in. It was amazing. I did listen to your
record numbers. That's fine. I have no idea. I don't usually see this.
I think we had. I think it kept pretty consistent. So
that's
yeah,
okay.
Thank you so much. Not so much last week.
Well, the first 5 minutes, and they realised you weren't there.
No, it was really good. Thank you so much for sharing. I've had a problem with my tooth for over a year now, and it was finally, I went and had dental surgery, and it's feeling good. It's been coming up to, 2.5 weeks, I think, since the surgery. It's feeling much better, so thank you so much. But yeah, it's nice because I'd wake up in the mornings after surgery. It would be really sore, and I don't have that now, so I'm definitely on the right road to recovery.
Yeah, that's really good. So we are throwing you right back into it today. What's the subject we're going to be talking about?
Before we go into it, we're going to be talking about rent increases. But before I go into it in too much detail, I just want to briefly mention one thing, if I may. I don't know why I'm asking you. Can I have your permission?
I know what this is, but you can. Go ahead.
Because I have been a bit out of action for the last few weeks, having a couple of weeks off effectively, what better thing to do than come in full steam ahead.
Do a month's worth of work at once.
And I decided, I've been working with this incredible coach, like she's a business coach, and she just really inspired me. So I actually did an offer party.
Yes.
What's an offer party?
An offer party? Yeah, please tell us.
I did an offer party on so it was across all my social medias, but it's mainly mainly Instagram and Facebook. But basically, I am running 7 really exciting offers all around property, obviously. But it's things like people want to know about raising angel investor funds. And I've realised, and you've pointed this out to me a few times, I'm quite good at raising money. Yeah. So I'm doing a whole boot camp, a 3-day boot camp, where I'm teaching people I'm giving people all the tools they need to be able to raise money for investment funds, whether it's secured, unsecured. I've raised anything from £300,000 to £750,000. So I'm doing a 3-day boot camp. It's I think it's £33 to come along. So I'm doing all these really exciting offerings. Basically, I'm also doing some sourcing. I am a compliant sourcer. I'm reducing my sourcing fee from $5,000 to $995 for rent to SA if you're interested. So I'm doing all these lovely, exciting offers. So if you're interested, the problem I have is that it was on Friday and Saturday, and the offers end on Sunday morning. But unfortunately, none of the podcast listeners will have had the chance to have a look at them and to enroll. So
what are you going to do?
So what am I going to do? If you would like to have a little look at my socials, or you can email me and I can send you the offers directly. But if you're interested, let me know and I will send you a new link to enroll. So there's 7 offers. There's lots of things. There's something for everyone. There's free stuff. There's £27 offering all the way up to £1,200, I think. So whatever, hopefully something for everyone. Yeah.
So, and a lot of this is going to be stuff that we have touched on in the podcast,
exactly,
either here or before I even joined. So historical property information and questions that people have asked to find out about for property investing as landlords and property investors in general. It's quite a wide spectrum you cover. And it's very, there's something there for everyone. So whatever reason you're listening to here, if you want to go into more depth with it, it's definitely worth checking out. And where can you find those offers?
Well, by the time the podcast drops, they'll be over. But you will still you can see on my socials what they were, because I've put loads of information. If there's any that you'd like to do, then just send me a private message. Either go through propertyempress.com, send a contact form, or you can message me through Instagram or Facebook directly, and I will extend the offer just for the podcasters.
Fantastic. See, there was a reason to listen.
Exactly. But I've tried to do offers that I think they're always the ones that people ask me about the most. How do I get my first Airbnb? How do I raise the money? The EPC regs, that's the free one. There's loads of cool stuff there.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. So lots to get stuck into there. Back to the podcast
Back
today.
to the podcast.
What are we talking about today?
Oh my gosh. So rent increases is such a good topic, even if I say so myself.
Yeah.
Because it's so relevant. Because of mortgage rates going up, a lot of landlords, particularly if you invest in the South, you clearly haven't been listening to what I've been saying for the last few years, but it's fine. But if you're in the South especially, you're probably struggling a little bit with the mortgage rates going up. And even if you're in the Midlands and North, you're probably struggling, your cash flows are probably dropping. So it's a hot topic about rents going up. And it's always a little bit tricky because some landlords can be a little bit full on with the rent increases. But at the moment, our landlord has actually just tried to up our rent by 22%, which I think is insane. But I'm hearing of people like literally 50% rent increases. So I want to clear up any confusion about what you can do and really bring it back to what you should do, what you're legally allowed to do, and how to do it. So I'm going to be breaking it down, exactly what kind of rent increases that you can and should be offering. How to serve notice and certain other requirements that come with it.
Excellent.
Does that sound good?
It does sound good, yes. So would you want to start? Should we talk about...
You're looking at my notes.
I'm looking at your notes to make sure that I'm in line with everything. Definitely prepared for this one. Firstly, why would a landlord steeply increase their rent rates anyway?
Well, it's a very good question. At the moment, I think most landlords are steeply increasing their rents because their mortgage rate has gone up. So, I mean, we had one, if I can remember the numbers, one of our mortgages went from £200 to £400 a month. We've had one that's come out of the term this year so far. So for us, it's not a problem because we have 50. For that one, it's like 50% loan to value. Yeah. We've got really good, rent on it. It's the right property in the right area. It's got good rent. It's not a problem. But if a landlord, particularly if they're an accidental landlord, so they've just moved, like our landlady is a really good example. She's moved abroad, so she wants the house when she comes back. It's in the South. It's not the great cash flow. Suddenly her mortgage has gone up significantly. So therefore, she's trying to pass that increase on to us. Yeah. The issue I have, and this is a bit of a trigger for me, is if her mortgage had gone down, I can guarantee she wouldn't have dropped the rent. So for me, whilst I'm sympathetic, you can't pass it on. Like, it doesn't work like that. So what you can do is you can go with the government guidance. And one of the reasons that they're bringing in that we've obviously covered the renters reform bill on episode
6,
4?
5. No, I have no idea.
In a previous episode, we covered this. This is one of the things they're bringing in because the current guidance is very loose from the government, what you can and can't do. So I actually, because I'm prepared, I have actually got it printed out. So yeah, basically it says general rules about rent increases. Okay. It starts well, doesn't it? For any tenancy, your landlord must get your permission if they want to increase the rent by more than previously agreed. Okay. And then the second thing is...
So back on that, just thought that through again. Can I have a question that you probably won't be able to answer? How many contracts do we give to our tenants that we previously agree that we are increasing rent? Oh, actually, do you know what? I say that and we do. We do have a tenant who, on the longer term, on the 3-year contract, we will give the rent increase year on year. And we'll include it in that same contract. So... that's what that means. No. I don't think...
No. That means that say we have...
Oh, no, because that's in a contract. Yes. Because you can't increase once the contract's signed.
So it's saying, so basically it's saying, so if we had someone that, that would say we'd increased and they're 6 months into their tenancy, we can't just up it again. Yeah. We would have to, unless they agree. And... unfortunately, I think tenants don't realise that they don't have to agree to stuff, and they're scared of the landlords. They're scared of I'm not going to be able to get any. Yeah, exactly. So they do agree, unfortunately. So that's the first one. But I didn't want to land too much on that, but it is quite shocking. The main one, the rent increase must be fair and realistic, which means in line with average local rents, and that's very important. Yeah. So. There's loads of other information on that. I would suggest you go and check out the government website because it is a little bit wishy-washy, but it's a good place to be. Also, the National Residential Landlord Association, they give slightly more in-depth, but broadly speaking, I'm talking mainly like, because actually also I will mention at this point, in Scotland they're going through, I did my Get Started with Buy to Let course a few weeks ago, and I had someone who lives in Scotland who I think listens to podcasts. If you do, hello. And he was like, it would be really nice, because there are slightly different rules in Scotland, Wales and England. And he was like, it'd be really nice to understand the differences. So I did some deep dive, and I was really shocked. They've got someone in the housing sector government, in the government and housing sector, who basically hates landlords and has brought in...
in Scotland?
Yeah, in Scotland. They brought in all these like really terrible rules that really, the landlords are just like up in arms. But they currently have, I think it's for a certain period of time, I think it's still in play. They have a 3% rent increase cap at the moment. And then basically Wales and England, they were like, are you going to do the same thing? And obviously it hasn't happened. Yeah. But there are always talks about rent caps. But the government, I read to you, didn't I? There's some, they've got like an official line, like we basically, they're not up for rent increases, but we're going to try and keep things really like predictable or something. And then they do it. Anyway, it was a bit of a joke really, because it was like what you're saying and what you're doing is completely different things. But anyway. I am going to talk generally about, I'm going to assume that most people have a tenancy where they've got a tenant in a year contract, because there's slightly different rules for if it's in a periodic tenancy. If Wales and England and Scotland are all slightly different. But I'm kind of talking mainly about England. If you're in if you have a 1 year, most people have like a 1 year contract, it's coming to the end, you want to up the rent. So I'm talking more about that. If you have quirky or different kinds of tenants, then do your research basically. But this is kind of a general feel. One other thing, just before I go launch into it in more detail, is why you should definitely, ignore all the reasons why people might want to increase their rent, it's important to increase your rents. Yeah. And this was something that because we were consistent with our rent increases, and then we kind of stopped, and then we went into the pandemic, or we didn't do it so regularly, and then we went into the pandemic, and we were like, we're not going to increase our rents because it's a really difficult time, etc. And we always thought it was a really good thing, didn't we? I was really proud of the fact that we weren't, our tenants were paying less than market rent. I think this was when I was going through a phase of, I'm a bad person because I'm a landlord. Like, I think there was some underlying guilt about being a landlord because I believe the mainstream media. I'm over that now. I now realise I'm a good landlord and we need more of me. But one of the things that I realised, particularly in lockdown, was I was being approached by a lot of tenants who were saying that they needed to move and they realised how expensive the rents are. And their landlord had accidentally created a poverty trap. And I realised we had done that because I realised that if we had these great tenants and we're like, they're long-term dream tenants, they're paying under market value rent. But actually, if they wanted to leave, and then it was like, well, it's too expensive to leave, we were kind of making them stay. And I just realised it wasn't a good place to be in.
No, it is important to have that capped increases just to keep along with the market, so there's no surprises. Because actually, when someone's in your property for about 5 years and they don't have a rent increase, particularly for a period where, like now, when the mortgages go up and landlords are trying to pushing the rent increases, and rent is going up generally across the whole of the UK really, then you have a situation where they want to go and find somewhere else to live, but the jump between the similar kind of property it is so big that they can't make it. It's not just that, because also when people move, they're not generally looking to move for the similar sized property in the same area. They're either upsizing because they've got maybe families increased, more people living in the house, they need more space, or they're downsizing and they're looking for somewhere smaller. So to actually find a place at the same level is fairly rare for a tenant. The only situation it would be is if they're trying to move somewhere a bit closer to where they work, or close to something that they want to be near, like a family or something like that. But generally, you wouldn't look for a house, maybe for instance next door. You wouldn't move to next door's house from your own house if there's something seriously wrong. But then what you create is this huge gap from them to have to try and make, and it might be that they have budgeted at a certain level all that time, and then when they go to do it, even their income doesn't match what it should be for the sort of house that they're living in, because they've just not had the time to prepare that over the years by not giving them the rent increase. So I think it is important to give a little one, and it's not very nice for them to hear, or any renters to hear, that they have to pay more money year on year, but it is kind of how it is.
Yeah.
And it's important to make sure that they, when they do decide to move on, that they're not restricted from doing so.
Exactly. And actually it leads really nicely into how much to increase. When we did used to kind of consistently up the rent, we would always tend to do about 3%, and sometimes it like up to 5%. Sometimes if it was if 3% was a weird number, like rounds it up a little bit, but normally 3 to 5%, because it was kind of always around, for me, the logic was salary inflation.
Yeah, same for me. I'd always look at that. It would be where the salary sits and what was compared to the previous year when they signed the contract, and make sure it's just broadly in line with that. If anything, just a little bit under, because our tenants are always good tenants. We put the effort in at the start to find those good tenants, so that we want to reward their loyalty, and they're looking after the house by making sure that we can keep it competitive.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
So for me, 3 to 5%, but with inflation being what it is, and the thing is that at the moment with rents are going up dramatically, because a lot of landlords are getting out the landlord game because of all the regulation, the EPC stuff, the tax. Like, there's so many reasons. Again, don't be disheartened. Done in the right way, it's absolutely amazing. I've been talking all morning about this. In all my lives at the moment, that's all I'm talking about. Like, is buy-to-let dead? No. If you invest in the right way, it's not dead. You can navigate any market. But if you're not investing in the right way, then all these things will affect your business, basically. In terms of how much to increase the rents, we've always done 3 to 5%, but because of the work of inflation, because rents are going up so dramatically, they are talking, the social housing rent cap is inflation plus 1%, which at the moment is inflation, I think it's 8 point something, so it'd be 9 point something percent. So maybe a maximum of like 10%, that you could potentially increase your rents by. Again, to be honest, 3 to 5% feels fair, but if it means they're going to be dropping behind market rents, you might want to be considering going a little bit higher. But the key thing, there's two things to bear in mind. A, how much you increase and buy. So our landlord's trying 22%, which is just not fair or realistic. And then the other thing to look at is the market rent. So we went online. It was really easy for me to look. I just went on Rightmove, which also has open rent properties, had a little look at everything that was on for rents. And for what they're asking for, we'd be able to buy a 4-bedroom detached house, newly renovated with double garage and a massive garden. So I just sent this and said, well, this is the comparison. And just to be clear, we don't live in a house like that. We've got little kids. Like, there's just no point in living in a nice house like that. Well, I say little kids, they're not that little anymore.
They still make a mess.
They still make a mess. They make a bigger mess because they're bigger kids. So I kind of said, like, this is not market rent. What you're asking isn't market rent, because what they're looking for is if the landlord was to put it back on the market, what they could get for it. And then that's where the argument comes in, because they could probably argue they'd get it. And I'm like, maybe, unlikely. However, there's so much demand for housing, but I just don't think, because also to mention, there was another property that is what we're currently paying, and it was newly renovated. It was a slightly smaller house, but it had been extended. So it was it had one less bedroom, but it had been extended. So I was like, but this is a good comparable. They're actually they're asking for less than what we're paying. But it is newly renovated. Our house is not newly renovated. Like, in fact, we're doing some improvements ourselves. So I was like, it's not what you're asking for is not market rent. What we're paying is already market rent, and we'll pay a little bit more. We don't mind upping the rent, but we're not by 22%, and not when we can go and buy like basically a mansion for the same amount of money. Yeah.
I mean, they're using tools like, the market's going up and there's no cap on rent increases, but it's like, well, as you're going to talk about, there's not an official cap on rent increases, but there is something to use as a guide, isn't there, that they're using from the government site?
Yeah, so you can literally Google, I had to think then, I can literally Google rent increases, and you get taken to the government website, and they do give you some guidance. The main thing for me is the rent increase must be fair and realistic, which means in line with average market rents. That's the main thing. But you can also go to, like I said, the NRLA and get some guidance. But the thing that I really like with all of this, because again, it's a little bit slack in the terminology on the definition. So I understand why the letting agent kind of came back and went, well, there's no rent increase. There's like rent increase cap. And I was like, well, there is, because it has to be market rent. Their argument is we could get this if we put it on the market. And I'm like, but on paper, it's above market rent. So anyway, so when you serve your rent increase notice, as a landlord, you have to give at least 2 months rent. 2 months rents. You have to give 2 months notice. So you can fill in what's called a section 13 or a form 4, which again you can get from the government website, or you can, again, if you're a part of the NRLA, you can download it with them. And basically you're just serving notice to your tenant. You're just saying, this is what the rent is, this is what I want to increase it to. And it's just a formal announcement of what the rent, what you'd like to increase it to. And it has some very interesting wording. So it's like what you can do if you agree. What do you think you do if you agree to the rent? As a tenant, if you agree to the rent increase, what do you need to do?
Yeah, probably sign the new contract and just stay there.
And pay the new rent.
And pay it, yeah, of course. Most important of the three, yeah.
But it's good that they specify that.
Yeah, well, you know, they have to do that.
It's a legal document. I don't mean to be mean. It's a legal document. They have to do it. But if you do not accept the proposed new rent and do not wish to discuss it with your landlord, because we've just discussed it with them, if you do not wish to increase it and discuss it with landlord, you can refer this notice to the tribunal.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, like Men in Black in like you must
think about more some tired person on the edge of retirement sitting in a dusty office just piling through this enormous filing folder right up higher than they are.
You must do this before the starting date of the proposed new rents, and you must notify your landlord that you're doing so. Otherwise, he or she may assume that you've agreed to pay the proposed new rents. But it basically says that if you don't agree to the rent increase, you can take it to the tribunal. We did a bit of research. It's all a bit cloak and daggers, isn't it? But basically, the tribunal is like, it's a government body, but it's kind of technically separate from the government. And they basically are a tribunal to be like a separate person to look with fresh eyes to work out what they think is a fair market rent and what you should be paying. So if it went on the market, what would they be able to get? And that's why I'm fairly comfortable, because I know how to do my property research. And there is nothing on the market that suggests that what they're asking is a fair market rent. Because it's not what they might be able to get it, but it would still be over market rent. So I think it's all in the devil's in the detail. So the tribunal, basically a third party, and they look at it. They can put the rents higher. So we might have it where they go, no, we disagree. There's, I don't know, so maybe I didn't do my research properly or something. They can put it higher. They can also put it lower, because that's the thing. I actually think that my saying, well, we can up the rent a bit, I actually think we're going to be technically paying over market. So they might just say, no, you have to keep it the same or lower. Brilliant. Thank you very much. True. So I hopefully won't get to that point, but it is there as a possibility.
No, it's sort of, we're sort of joking a bit about the form, but it is quite an important guide to have from a tenant's point of view, certainly. And we've been on that side of it, saying actually there is some kind of very loose, ambiguous protection, but there is something there just to stop the uncapped outrageous increases, and it is important for tenants to know this. It's just important for landlords to know it, because it's important for a landlord to be ethical in what they do. It isn't just about money, because actually the example with our own tenancy is it expires in a couple of months. We could move, and then it's not just the 22% increase that they're going to be losing out on. They'll actually have a void period as well, because we've been moving out on one day, and I don't know, maybe they'll want to do viewings before we move out, but we're not obliged to do that, and I don't want to be awkward or anything. But if we're moving, it's going to be difficult for us to be showing people around the house as well, or having people come around. So the reality is that they're not going to be even marketing the place until we've gone, because it is different from when we moved in. So they'll be taking photos of it to post it on Rightmove and Supla and stuff. I think it's you could lose a month, you could lose 2 months if the agency are just not on the ball with it. That's a lot. That becomes a lot. Then becomes a big difference in instead of making an extra 22%, you end up, you losing 2 out of 12 payments you could in a year, and that's a lot, big jump from where you are.
Plus, we're really good tenants.
Yeah. We're looking after the house and doing bits up on it.
Because we understand, the landlord's position. So yeah, we're doing some maintenance ourselves. Like, there's a lot of stuff we don't talk to them about, or not that we don't talk to them about, that we just get on with ourselves. And certainly we know the house was empty. You're absolutely right. The house was empty for quite a long time before we got it.
Yeah.
And the previous tenant had been, from what we can gather from the landlord herself, not exactly the easiest tenants. So there's so much more than just, you're absolutely right, so much more than just the amount of money that they're going to make from the rents.
But that, as a landlord as well, having a tenant who can do the odd jobs and stuff like that, that contributes to, for us personally, contributes to our keeping the rent at a reasonable amount. Smaller increases. It's like, well, actually, we don't need to be ordering people in every few weeks to fix this and that. If it's stuff you fix yourself, that's fine. If you're happy to do that. If it's something you need to buy, they let us know. Oh, we had to buy these supplies because we had to fix this in the house. It's like, fine.
Do you remember the money we saved them? You've just reminded me when you said about that. Do you remember? So we had a problem in one of the, we've got 2 bathrooms. One of the, it sounds like we've got a mansion, doesn't it? It's not. It's a weirdly shaped house, but we happen to have 2 bathrooms instead of a anyway. But I won't go into the details, but there was a problem in the bathroom, and the letting agent was sending people around. And then they told them they had to have the whole bathroom replaced, didn't they? And it was quoted at £5,000 or thousands of pounds. And we were like, this is ridiculous. There's nothing wrong with the bathroom. So you went and did a bit of DIY and you fixed it.
Yeah, it was just it didn't have to look pretty and brand new. It just needed to work.
Yeah.
So that's what we did.
And we say, and again, most tenants would just have taken their fancy bathroom.
Yeah. But then from a landlord's perspective as well, that's a really handy thing to have, is a tradesman tenant. Where tenants who've done that, and we kept the rent really, really reasonable for that tenant, didn't we, for ages?
Yeah, because
until they moved out.
Did he used to pay for the stuff as well, or did you you'd reimburse him sometimes?
I would, the big stuff. He would say, I can get it from my suppliers at work, so I don't need washers and little things. But he fixed the toilet and got some plumbing stuff like that, and I just bought him the bits that he needed, and the rest he did. So there's definitely value in that if you can find a tradesman tenant.
Just to be clear, that tenant was in for years. It wasn't. They didn't need a lot of work, but when it did, he would always do it. And he'd just be like, "Oh, I fixed this, and would you mind just give me some money for this?"
They were for about 6 years.
They were amazing. Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
So rent increases.
So where are we on it?
So you have, I can't remember if I've said this now, you have to give 2 months notice, at least 2 months notice, serve the notice so that it's all formally done. They can see that, what their options are. Just fair and realistic. This is all going to kind of fall away because the renters reform bill will come about at some point. But in the meantime, because the risk that we're in at the moment is that obviously if we kind of go, no, we don't want to pay that much, or even if they just go, actually we don't want you in now, that's always the concern with as a tenant, your landlord's going to ask you to leave. That could well happen. They could serve us a no fault based eviction and say, actually, can you just go? Even if we went, oh no, we will pay the full amounts, they might just go, no, we want you out. I don't think it's likely because we know the landlord, we've met her a few times. But it could happen, and that's the thing. If you're a tenant or if you're a landlord, you can do that. I wouldn't recommend it in any way, but it is a very real possibility. Yeah. What was interesting for me was when I was speaking to the letting agent about this, they were really pushing me. Oh, but there's not enough houses out there, and they were trying to lead with fear. Yeah, and I'm a bit like, I don't play that game basically. So, but I was like, but the thing is that I know the landlord game, and this is the experience we had. Like when you understand property the way that we do, when we moved into the house 2-3 years ago, it was at a time where I actually had some friends in the area looking, and they were saying, oh, there's not enough houses, and they were in this real lack mentality. And I'm sure it's the experience they had. There's not enough houses. How am I going to get a house? I'm so desperate, and what am I going to do? And we literally, the first one we looked at, we really liked, and it was offered to us. The second one we looked at, we liked, it was offered to us. But they just weren't quite right, so we didn't take them. And then the third one was this one, which we loved, and we got, and it was fine. And it's like, there is like, I want to really honour the fact that so many people struggle to find houses, but there's also ways, techniques that you can find houses. You don't have to live in lack. So I know that if they turn around to us and said you have to go, we don't want to go, mainly because the neighbours are so lovely. It's a lovely house in a nice area. It is a little bit dated and there's stuff with it, but we're not that attached to it, and we would definitely go. We would like to stay.
Yeah.
But, you know, if they say you got to go, I think the concern is the landlord might say, well, I'm not going to be paid, because if she's in negative cash flow, which I'm not sure she would be, but if she's in negative cash flow, the other thing for her to do really is to ditch the letting agent,
go direct with
and
us.
then go direct with us, and we can say if you keep the rent reasonable, then we'll just make the minor repairs.
Yeah.
Job done.
Sounds good.
Anyway, but if you have properties, don't worry about all of that. All you need to know is give at least 2 months notice, serve the correct document. You can get it online, do a fair and realistic or reasonable rent. Just make sure that it's in line with market rents, and talk to your tenants, you know, because actually we are open to having a conversation with the landlord and discussing what is fair. At the moment, we just haven't really got any communicate. Well, we've been a bit back and forth, and then we haven't heard anything, so we don't really know what's happening. But yeah, just keep in contact with the tenants. But most tenants, we've been upping our rents, and I've been like, well, not upping the rents, but as they're coming to the end of the term, I'm using exactly all of this. I'm saying, like, first of all, I'm saying thank you for being amazing tenants, because they are. Yeah. And then I'm saying this is the guidelines. Like, it has to be fair and realistic. Has to be in line with market rent. And I'm literally sending them links. This is what other properties are for rent, you know, and we do try to keep it reasonable, you know, reasonable. There was one that was like, that was 775 was the rent around the corner. And I was like, but that's going to be like a 12% increase. And I said, oh, let's just leave it at 770 or whatever it was. I can't remember. So it was kind of close to market rent, but slightly under.
Yeah. No, that's the best way to do it, I think. Right, and cool. Anything else that we need to cover on rent increases? I think we've gone through a lot of it.
We've covered it all.
Yeah, landlord and tenant's point of view. Yeah. So hopefully, it's going to be landlords listening to this podcast rather than tenants. However, I think it's really important for landlords to see the tenant's side of the side of it, because we've all seen the pressure of mortgage increases, and then the energy bills prices, and everything is just, food's costing more, everything is more expensive at the moment, and people are getting squeezed. And sometimes as a landlord, an easy option would just be, we can just claim that back off the tenant, but you've got to understand the tenant's position as well, because you ultimately want to know that they're going to be able to afford to pay you each month with that. Otherwise, the whole thing becomes a mess. If then gets to the point where they're not paying, or they're paying late, or even worse, they have to miss payments completely, or just fall really behind. The further they fall behind, the harder it is to catch it up. You want to be in a position that they can afford it, but it's also a reasonable level for them to stay in the market, and also that you are still making money as a professional business person as well. Yeah.
In terms of, if you have any questions, next week. Should we talk about next week, actually?
Okay. So next week's subject.
I am going through such a fascinating process, and I want to share it with you guys next week, not now. We had a property that we wanted to install a new central. It had the old hot air system, basically, because they're quite common in Northampton. I like the hot air systems.
Yeah.
But it's not very energy efficient. And with all the EPC regs, we knew that we were going to have to probably look at getting a new heating system. So we'd got like quotes and stuff and things like that. And then on another property, I was buying a property, and I was going through the EPC regs with that. And anyway, weird thing happens, and I ended up chatting to this guy, and he does these energy, like EPC, like energy grants for landlords who need to renovate the property to get it to the EPC regs. There are grants available. I didn't know that. So I had a chat with him, and me being what's this, something about property I don't know. So basically had like a very long conversation with this lovely guy. And he was telling me all about the EPC. So we're going through the process. He's had an assessor go to one of our properties, and they've assessed the property, and we're going to have about £20,000 worth of renovation, like updates. So it's getting a new heating system, it's getting cavity wall insulation, it's getting loft insulation, it's getting like a whizzy temperature control thing. There's all this stuff. It's like 20 grand, like 15.
Radiators.
Yeah, all radiators.
It's incredible.
So it's like 15 to 20 grand's worth of stuff, and it's going to cost us £400. And it would have been free, except for like they had to get it to the C rating, they had to add the extra whizzy thingy in. The whizzy thingy. Can you imagine if he was listening to me?
You're talking about a smart thermostat, aren't you?
Something like that, yeah.
For everyone else out there who's wondering what it is.
Yeah, I'm not very technical. So yeah, they had to add that in. He was like, that's the £400 basically. So he was really upset that I'm going to have to pay £400. I was like,
do you know what?
Honestly,
okay.
like, you just saved me £5,000. So it's absolutely brilliant. And so he's explaining it's certain tenants, and each council do it slightly differently. So I'm going to do. I'm worried I've just told the episode. I'm going to do an episode next week on it.
Yeah.
Because I think it's so important.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited. I shared a video on my TikTok and I got loads of people asking about it, so I'm going to share it. But the guy that I've been talking to is absolutely fantastic, so I'm going to be sending lots of people to him. I've started doing this already. I'm part of the Women in Property networking group, and it's like a little group. It's like quite informal. I was like, go and talk to this guy. He's amazing, and loads of people have spoken to him. So yeah, it's fascinating. But also, and it's a whole strategy. He was like, go and get properties that are he's telling me the perfect kind of properties. The more work you do, I'm doing this is like 2 episodes in one. Yeah. The more, it's because I'm so excited.
Cut this bit.
The more work you do, the better. Basically, if you get like a G rated, basically, really on energy efficient property. The more work you do, the better the grant you can get. You can get up to £50,000. Amazing. So you could do like a whole strategy on this alone.
Yeah, you could. I mean, you're not paying.
Yeah, beautiful. So I'll go into more detail. And when I say that, I mean I'm going to have to research, because I've understood the concept, but I need to understand the nitty gritty to be able to share with you guys.
Yeah, but that's really exciting. I mean, this is for any landlord to purchasing at the moment. Making savings on the discounted property.
It's not even the purchase. I think the problem is the landlords who have the properties, who have long-term dream tenants in. They're like, because if you buy a property, you can put it into the costings and then renovate, refinance to pull that money back out. But if you have a property already, it's harder to find the money for it.
Yes, that's true as well.
That's how I look at it. Okay, so that's next week's episode.
Excellent.
But if you want to contact us, then you can contact me through propertyempress.com. There's a contact form there. You can message me on my social medias. And thank you so much for all the 5-star reviews, by the way. I know you guys are just incredible. I do see them and I forget to mention, but thank you for the 5-star reviews. Yeah, that's really awesome. We keep doing it, the more you are listening and enjoying it. So it gives us motivation to keep going. So it is really helpful to have that feedback. Thank you. Let us know if there's anything you want us to cover as well. Yes, we will continue to do the subjects that people want to hear. We've still got some lined up, but we're always happy to put them on the list, and we'll just keep going and keep covering what you want to hear. Cool. All right. Thank you so much. So that's it this week. Yeah, thank you everybody. Tune in next week to hear all about the EPC increases on your portfolio's properties and how you can do that. But until then, don't forget to pop into Anna's social media and check out all our offerings from the offer party that you did last week. Love it. And hopefully people can find out a little bit more about that by messaging you directly. Yes. Cool. Yeah, for sure. It'd be great to be able to connect with you. Yeah. All right. Okay. Thanks everyone. See you later. Bye. Bye.